The old ship drifted in space like a dead creature. It had been there for so long that most aliens forgot about it. The ship was dark and motionless, gently rotating in the empty void between the stars. The metal hull was covered in scars, and from hundreds of years in space, Commander Velta peered at the unusual vessel through his observation screen. Seen it many times before on his patrols through this part of space. The ship was large, about 2 kilometers long, but it never moved or sent out any indications. His people, the Zephyrians, had governed this area for 5,000 years. They had power over 17 star systems and conquered every adversary they had encountered. The mystery ship meant nothing to them. Was just ancient trash floating in space. Velta was standing on his bridge. Warship, the infinite victories about him. His crew labored at their stations. The Zephyrians had established vast cities on 3 worlds, and were watching the mining operations on surrounding planets. Millions of their people lived here, extracting important metals from the ground and sending them to others. Zephyrian worlds. The mysterious ship was here before the Zephyrians came. When their first scouts discovered this system, the ship was already floating, there dead and cold. Scientists had inspected it many times over the years. They detected no life signals, no energy readings, and no movement. The ship appeared, constructed of some kind of metal they didn't recognize, but it seemed primitive compared to their own. Captain Zixora approached Velta holding a datapad. Was young for a ship captain, but she was intelligent and brave. Her green skin had Thefan marks that revealed she hailed from the warrior character of their society. "Commander, we are receiving odd readings from the ancient ship," she added, handing up the datapad. Velta took the equipment and studied the figures on the screen for the first time in thousands of years. The lifeless ship showed signs of energy. It was relatively little, just enough to power a basic radio. Was there? What do you suppose it means? Most likely nothing. Old ships, sometimes the Zephyrians, have energy cells that leak electricity when they are impacted by cosmic radiation. Had explored thousands of dead ships over the years. The majority of them were empty hulks with nothing valuable inside, but sometimes they discovered useful technologies or rare metals. Velta decided this was a wonderful opportunity to train some of his younger cops. "Prepare a boarding squad," he directed Lieutenant Kexith and 6 soldiers. "I'd like to know whether there's anything valuable on that spacecraft." Zixara nodded and walked away to arrange the mission. Velta turned back to gaze at the unusual ship. Despite all these years, something about it troubled him. The shape was improper in some way. Most ships were built for efficiency with smooth curves and sleek lines. This ship appeared to be constructed for battle. It had sharp angles. Strange markings were carved into its hulls, although they were too worn to read clearly. The Zephyrians had never seen anything like it. In their journeys across the galaxy, their databases contained information about hundreds of different alien cultures, but none of them created ships like this one. An hour later, a little shuttle left the endless victory and went for the unknown spacecraft. Lieutenant Kexmouth was leading the mission. He was an experienced soldier who had fought in many fights. With him were 6 other soldiers, armaments and scanning equipment. As the shuttle approached the old ship, Kexmouth was able to view more details on it. The metal was dark gray, almost black in some parts, with long scratches. Burn marks covered its surface. Whatever happened to this ship, it had gone through a brutal war. For look at the size of those weapon ports, one of his guys stated earlier, pointing at holes in the ship's hull. This thing was built to fight. CX. Nodded. The ship possessed more armaments than typical Zephyrian battleships, yet they all compared to modern technology. This ship appeared archaic and basic. The aliens that built it must have been violent, but they were definitely extinct now. The shuttle found a location to park near what looked like an airlock. Kexith and his team put on their breathing gear and examined their weapons. They had no idea what they would discover inside the old ship, but they were ready for anything. "Remember, we are just here to look around and take some pictures," Kexmith informed him. "Soldiers, do not touch anything unless I instruct you to." The airlock opened with the emergency lights flickered on in the passage beyond, casting odd shadows on the earth. The soldiers glanced at each other in amazement. As the ship still had power, after all these years, Kexmouth strode into the passage first, with his weapon ready. The air inside the spacecraft was stale, but breathable. The walls were constructed of the same dark metal as the outside hull. Everything appeared old but well built. Whoever made this ship knew how to build things that would last. As they walked deeper down the ship, more lights turned on automatically, and the passageways became smaller. Zephyrian ships were made for creatures that were shorter and thinner than his people. Strange writing covered the walls. However, None of them could read it. They discovered what appeared to be a command center with black displays and control. When Sexsmith touched one of the panels, it instantly sprang to life with dazzling lights, white lights and white dot lights, moving pictures or screens activated around the room, showing stars. Sir, you must see these maps and information lists in the foreign language. One of his men called from across the room. Sexsmith rushed over and noticed a television displaying images of different. He recognized some of the alien species as Zephron races, conquered during the last couple thousand years. But how could this antique ship have information about species that lived so far away? Then he saw something that made his blood run cold. Perfect image of a Zephyrian warrior, coupled with full information about their biology, technology, and military tactics. The knowledge was more comprehensive than anything in their own systems. This dead ship knew everything regarding them. Sexsmith peered at the screen, displaying extensive information about his own people. His hand shook as he read the data. The ancient ship knew everything about Zephyrian biology, armaments, and fighting tactics, weak points, information that should have been hard for any outsider to know. How is this possible? One of his warriors murmured. The ship has been dead for thousands of years. Sexsmith didn't respond. He was too preoccupied reading the files on the screen. The ship contained recordings of every major Zephorian combat since the 5 years. It knew the names of their commanders, the locations of their hidden bases, and the precise number of another soldier called from one of their fleet's ships. Different console. There are files on dozens of other species as well. Sexsmith walked over and saw screens full of foreign races, some of which he recognized as species the Zephyrians had fought and conquered. Others were absolutely unknown to him. Every file had extensive biological information, technology, evaluations, and military capabilities. The soldier pointed to one specific file. These are the Korak. We destroyed their homeworld 3,000 years ago. But look at the date on this file. Sexsmith looked at the timestamp. The file had been updated just 50 years ago. But the Korash were extinct. There were no survivors left to study. Check the other files, Sexsmith ordered, and see when they were last. The soldiers worked rapidly, calling out dates as they located them. The Veltron files were updated 200 years. The Nexus Coalition files were updated last year, including files on species that had been extinct for millennia displayed latest upgrades. This ship has been watching everyone for thousands of years. It has been collecting information on every alien race in this section of the galaxy and managed to stay incognito while doing it. Sexsmith attempted to access more files, but many were locked behind. The few security codes he could crack made him increasingly uneasy with each passing minute. The spacecraft had extensive maps in space, including the locations of their most secret military facilities. It knew of Project Starfall, a weapons development that only the highest-ranking commanders were meant to be aware of.